another episode of the Deep Dive Expedition Series. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the 2019 Rock Expedition. I'm your host, Simon Wardable, and we are joined today by Nika, Lindsay, and Iain. Lindsay is a 2020 adventure grad as well, and Nika is a 2019 adventure diploma graduate. Iain is the rock program lead. He's been a faculty member since 1992, and I guess 2019 would have been his 28th rock expedition. So he's been on a couple of them. So guys, thanks for joining me today. How are you all doing?
Great.
Yeah, doing well.
Excellent. So just to get us started here, maybe Nika, will just start with you. Maybe just introduce yourself, tell us where you're calling from, and if you could be adventuring right now, what would you be doing?
Hey everyone, my name's Nika. I am currently calling from Nelson, the West Kootenays. And if I could be anywhere right now, I would probably be in Squamish doing multi-pitch climbing on the Chief right now.
Okay, nice. And Lindsay, what about you?
I am Lindsay. I am currently in Osoyoos, BC, and I would probably be in Squamish or in Skaha right now, also in the nature, rock climbing.
Okay, fantastic. And Iain, what about yourself?
Well, yeah, I moved here to Kamloops in '92, and I'm still here. And if I wasn't sitting here, I should be at work in Red Rocks doing the rock expedition. That's what I would be doing right now.
Yeah, it's. I guess that's the the usual part of the schedule for you these days, right? Expedition down in Red Rocks in May. So I don't know. I guess I had the right three people here to talk about the rock expedition because all of you seem to want to go rock climbing during this isolation or quarantine or whatever we're calling it right now. So yeah, I want to use the podcast here today or this opportunity to reminisce a little bit about that rock expedition that you guys did last year. As a way to kind of satisfy our expedition hunger, or since we can't be rock climbing right now, we might as well recall some fond memories. And actually, I don't know if you guys knew this, but when I was in my first year of the program, way back in 2012, I also did the rock expedition. When I was still, trying to find myself torn between rock and whitewater, and I went on the rock expedition. So maybe I can relate to you guys a little bit. But why don't we start off? Maybe Lindsay, I'll start with you. Can you give us a little bit of a background on the expedition that you guys went on? So kind of where did you go and how long did you go for?
Yeah, for sure. We got the permits to be able to go climbing in Red Rocks. So the usual plan of spending a day driving down to Smith Rocks in Oregon, spending a couple nights there climbing. For many of us, in the past years, there wasn't a trad climbing portion specifically to learn rock climbing. So people who didn't know how to trad climb would learn how to place gear, how to use it safely, and some multi-pitching techniques while we were in Smith Rocks. And then we'd spend the day driving down to Red Rocks in Las Vegas, Nevada, and set up there for about 10 days and just go multi-pitching as much as we can. And it was an amazing experience.
Fantastic. And I guess, Nika, from your point of view, maybe what were some of the goals for the expedition? I guess maybe why did you yourself want to go and do you think you achieved the goals kind of as a group?
So the group goal of the expedition was to get everyone super comfortable climbing multi-pitch trad and being comfortable with trad anchors and route finding on the rock. So I think everyone on the expedition was pretty comfortable with multi-pitch trad by the end of it. And everyone could work on wherever their skill level was at. So if they were never climbing trad before, they could start climbing trad. And if they were experienced, they could be guiding other people up. So it was super fun how everyone could work with each other and build on everyone else's strengths and work on their weaknesses. And I really joined the Rock Expert to really hone my trad anchors and route finding while we were climbing and descent systems. And I think I really learned a lot from both Iain and our other instructor, Chris, during this exped.
Great, thanks, Nika. Iain, I got just a question for you. Maybe you can kind of highlight a little bit, from your 28 years of rock expeditions. I guess, can you give us a little bit of a history of the rock expedition? Like, where have you gone before? What typically are the goals of the trip, and I guess, yeah, maybe how it's changed over the years.
Yeah, and not historically, it wasn't always a rock expedition. We did some trips that were multi-sport. So we did some climbing, some rock climbing, some mountaineering, some ski touring. We did a couple of trips like that. But we've evolved into a multi-pitch trad climbing expedition, and we used for the last few years we've used Smith Rocks and Red Rocks, and we use Smith Rocks as a starting point because of permit limitations in Red Rocks is a permit for 10 days. And so being a 2-week trip, we need 4 more days of climbing. So Smith is a great transition point for the drive down, and it's a really wonderful area. We've also used Yosemite Valley, and those are our 2 go-tos of Red Rocks and Yosemite. Each area has pros and cons. Red Rocks is on a permit system. It's a lottery permit, but hey, that's Vegas, right? So we don't always get the permit. You don't always, sometimes you're 8-roll the snake guys and you don't get the permit. And it sort of seems funny that the default, if we don't get the Red Rocks permit, is we have to go to Yosemite, which arguably is not the worst place to go. Yosemite is amazing. It's a great spot. The challenge is that Yosemite doesn't have quite as many user-friendly, lower-end, easier-grade multi-pitch routes. Once you're climbing Yosemite 5.9, there's a ton of really good routes, but in the 5.6 to 5.8 range, Red Rocks has a better selection.
Okay, so it sounds like you guys are spoiled for choice a little bit with your locations. You got kind of 1A, 1B, and 1C by the sounds of it. And I guess, Iain, maybe the other question is, like, what is the biggest challenge, I guess, for the students on these expeditions?
Well, really, the biggest challenge is around the logistics of who's going to climb where and with who. And so, take a place like Red Rocks, where there's, I don't know, 3,500 routes to choose from. Narrowing it down to the best route for a particular student group, typically 2 or maybe 4 students in a group, best route for that day in the progression of the skill set, and then optimizing the risk management around where do the instructors go, who are they going to climb with each day.
Right, and okay, well, maybe I'll turn it over to Lindsay again here, and let's talk a little bit about that planning process. So I guess the pre-planning process, right, before you guys set out. So I guess Lindsay and Nika too, had you guys ever planned anything like this before? Maybe Lindsay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I have planned more of a hiking trip before, which was just a little logistically complicated with ferries and cars and shuttles and stuff, but nothing quite at the scale of, it was 18 days out. We had a trailer, we had 10 students and 2 instructors, and booking the campsites, making sure where the grocery stores were. And yeah, I don't know, but it was really interesting to learn in conjunction with our ADVG 2830 International Exped Planning class to do that. Was nice.
And Nika, how did the planning process go? Like, I guess with your group, you have 10 people chiming in and figuring that stuff out. Like, from your point of view, how did the actual planning go?
I think we came up with a really good system where we were all like meeting once a week, and every student had a lead in a certain department. Like, we had a person who was dealing with the finances, someone who was dealing with the gear list, someone with the medical information. So if we had any issues with any one of the departments, we would just go to that student and they would be overseeing everything. So it was a more organized structure, which I think ended up helping us not being a complete chaos.
Okay, and I guess my follow-up question, maybe for both of you, is did your plan work? I guess, everything you planned before, did it work once you got down there? Nika, I'll start with you.
I think everything worked pretty well. Even the climbs that we had on our list, we ticked off like 80% of them. So I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah. And Lindsay, you'd echo that?
Yeah, definitely. Even in terms of like choosing your partners and choosing the routes every day, there was really no conflict there either. Everybody just kind of gelled and got along really well.
Okay, nice. Well, let me turn it over to the faculty and instructor on the course. Iain, what do you think? How did the expedition go, the 2019 version? Did the students pull it off?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're dealing with kids in the candy shop, and everything is great. And so there are very few bad choices. And I've been down there in Red Rocks or Yosemite enough times to know which routes are going to work and get a sense of how well students are climbing. And so when somebody suggests, oh, I want to go climb this tomorrow, I can coach them around, yeah, that'll be really good, or perhaps you should try something easier or harder, depending on where they're sitting with the skill set development. So it's hard not to have an amazing experience.
Right. Yeah. And it sounds like you can kind of come in and give those, the Jedi mind tricks a little bit. Somebody wants to, go bag a route that's maybe a little above or below where they're at. So I guess, Iain, the other thing I want to ask you too is there kind of like a single or maybe a few experiences really stand out to you, like a memorable learning experience that the students, I guess, experience on this trip?
Well, there's so many, and really what I get to see as an instructor is an amazing amount of personal growth from not just a technical skill perspective, but as a person, and that comes out in the progression of technical skills and the successes and failures on a series of challenges, and trying things and succeeding, and maybe trying things and failing or not succeeding as well as hoped, and then moving on and doing it again the next day, and reframing from the day prior, and moving that learning progression along.
Okay, Lindsay and Nika, just over to you guys. Maybe this is where we dig into the memory bank a little bit, but maybe just, Lindsay, you can start off. Just describe how your expedition experience was. Like, did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed? Just how did you feel being on that trip?
It was really interesting. I had previous opportunities to learn how to lead in traditional climbing, and I didn't take them. So I was very pushed to take that step and start leading in trad climbing, which was a really, really fun mental and physical challenge that I continue to love to this day. I can remember a day in Red Rocks where my partner and I, Dylan Murray, were set up to do this 5/8 trad route, Dark Shadows. Nika was also there. And it was an amazing learning experience because we weren't communicating with each other, and we both needed a rest day. And it showed in our climbing. It showed in our botched attempt at a descent, which took an hour instead of 15 minutes. So it was just a really interesting personal learning experience of, speak your mind, listen to your body, like talk to your partner. You need transparency in these relationships when there's inherent risk involved with the sport you're doing. So that's probably one of my fondest memories. It may not have been great at the time, but it stays with me to this day.
Yeah, fantastic. And Nika, what about you? How was your expedition experience? And feel free to share some memories or any fond memories you might have too.
I would say my expedition experience was completely magical. Like everything worked out perfectly, just how I had imagined it. And I would say one of my fondest memories would be experiencing flow like I've never ever experienced before. And it was on a climb called Crimson Chrysalis. And at that time, 5/8 was the hardest trad lead I had ever done. So I was already pushing myself and being like on the edge when I was climbing that, and still being able to climb that confidently when your mind and body is working in perfect unison and you're just in this meditative state. It was a really, really beautiful feeling. And then having to do all the descents through rappel, like multi-pitch rappelling, I have never done that before. So I had a lot of tips and tricks that I learned from Iain actually, which was really, really cool. And it was super. Another really fun memory that's not related to climbing was one day when we were back at the camp, another friend of ours, Jess, she had dared someone to, I think, dye their hair pink or blue, and like they lost it, and they actually ended up dyeing their beards and hairs blue and pink, and it was really, really hilarious.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's funny you go on these expeditions for the activity, but often there's a lot of memories that aren't even activity related that tend to stand out to you guys. So, I guess my last question for you guys is: if somebody was planning a trip like this in the future, whether they were going on their own or they were going as part of a TRU expedition, what advice would you give them if you had to give them one kind of piece of advice? And maybe Iain, I'll start with you.
Open the guidebook. Because there are so many different climbs out there, and really it's a matter of finding the climbs that are right for you on a given day or series of days. So doing the preparation and then the physical preparation as well, of getting out and climbing as much as possible before the trip. And really the better people are climbing when we start on day one of the expedition, the further people go.
Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds like good advice. Open the guidebook. If you're going to bring it all the way down there with you, you might as well open up and see what's inside, right? Lindsay, what about you?
I would ask around the community about the level you're at and what climbs they might recommend. Some people like Iain we had as a great resource, and Chris to give us little pointers if we were lost, because the guidebook is like quite large. Definitely look in it, but it helps to like have a little bit of direction, and get psyched, like just get super stoked.
Awesome. Okay, so ask the locals and yeah, bring the good attitude, right? And Nika, what about you?
I would say don't be super fixated on certain climbs that you want to do, and be open to the suggestions of your instructors and your friends, because sometimes you might not be aware that you can climb something harder than you imagined, or like you're pushing yourself but you're too scared, but the instructors know that you can do it. So be open, and be open to trying new climbs, different climbs that may not be on your list but are fantastic.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I guess my piece of advice from what I learned when I was on my rock expedition, we had a great chance to go to the Metolius factory when I was there, which was a fond memory. It was pretty cool seeing them breaking cams apart, just, for our amusement, but it was pretty impressive to see that. But then when I was there, I totally impulse bought a trad rack, which I didn't really use much after, because I ended up packing all summer. So, maybe if you know what you want to do, you can, but yeah, be aware of the impulse trad rack buy. So I did. But yeah, guys, that's really all the time we have for today. So I just want to thank you guys for joining me and taking a little trip down memory lane for that the 2019 rock expedition. And I'm sure we probably could spend another hour or two just talking or sharing memories. So, but I hope this was enough of a fix for at least you guys, and maybe those listening and watching, while we are stuck inside and can't be climbing. So once again, thanks for joining me today, you guys.